The most glaring issue that faces business today is talent. According to Talent Now, 86% of the most qualified candidates for your open positions are already employed. That is a tough statistic. Okay, it's a tight labor market. We're all competing for talent.
Yep.
How does SBAM help us be competitive?
All of our products and services are first designed by small business owners for small business owners. So I want to make sure you understand that right off the bat.
And that's 500 employees and under.
500 employees
Right.
and under. Most of our employee benefit programs that we offer are 100 employees and fewer. And what we do is group purchasing. So what we're after is to make that small business owner as competitive in the employee benefit market, health insurance, life and disability, COBRA administration, Section 125, all of the things that they need to be able to offer to their employees to compete for that talent with the larger companies across Michigan. That's what it's all about, replicating, duplicating the offering of employee benefits in a small business that would be available in a much larger company.
And because you're doing a group purchase, it's more affordable?
It's either going to save that company time or money or both.
Excellent. We can all use saving a little more time and money.
No question.
Yeah, so thank you so much for being here.
Okay.
I'm Lisa Smith, and this is Focus on Business. Here with me today is Edythe Copeland, Sheri Welsh, and Brian Calley. Competition comes in many forms. In today's tight labor market, competition can be fierce when it comes to attracting new talent and hanging on to the people that you have. We've got experts here today to help you navigate this tough topic. Someone, please expand on how important this topic really is.
It is a big deal, Lisa, for small businesses. As a small business owner myself, and in my business as a professional recruiter, we help companies find talent. It's the #1 complaint of small businesses these days. That's what the folks at SBAM tell us. The #1 concern that small business owners have, what keeps them up at night, is finding talent.
And I would like to, piggyback on that, being the workforce system, capital area specifically, we represent the capital area. However, I do want to mention that there are 15 other Michigan Works agencies that provide services. And a lot of times we do provide these services to small businesses because they may not be big enough to have their own HR departments, and they need help understanding, how to even post, a position and what type of wages they should be setting. But that is the #1 issue that we hear from business is first of all, finding the folks, but then finding the folks that have the skills that they need to help their companies continue to grow and thrive.
How low is the unemployment number today?
Well, it's going to depend on where you are in the state. In the capital region, we're around between 3.4 to 4.5. It varies depending on the region. But obviously, throughout the states, there are some that's going to be higher, 7 or 8%, or maybe even higher in some of the larger urban districts.
Right, and to piggyback off that too, if you look at the professional sector, so you look at degreed candidates with a few years experience in their field, that drops to 2.4, 2.5%. So it's an acute shortage.
So Brian, can you set the stage for us? SBAM is very involved in this from a policy standpoint. What's happening there?
Well, there's a lot of focus and attention on it. Today we see these connections being made between business and education like we haven't seen in the past. And it really makes sense. You have supply and demand, right? You have the education system that equips young people and young adults, and in some cases adults going back to school, with skills. And then you have those who make the hiring decisions that are the demand, and making sure that we equip people with appropriate skills, with in-demand skills, is so very, very important. And so of course, over the last several years, we've seen this connection start to get stronger, but we've got a lot of work yet to do. So we had been involved over the past several years in several different initiatives within public policy and helping to make those connections better. One example that our employers really love is a program called Going Pro, and this really is a demand-driven type of a program. We have an employer, or in some cases a consortium of employers, that work with a local community college to say, over the next 3 or 4 years, we need, say, 100 people with this particular certification. And if you put together the curriculum to do it in partnership with us, then we will guarantee that we'll hire every single person that goes through this process. In many cases, even employers now are sponsoring the education, the certification of the employee, making that commitment early on, so that they get the first shot at the employment after the education is done. Those sorts of creative things are happening today, but this is still a very hot topic. This is still an area that I expect to really dominate the landscape of economic development discussions over the coming years.
And it's a topic, or I guess it's a solution that isn't something that pivots quickly. These things take time, and over time we get smarter and we get more programs in place. Those folks come out into the workplace, employers can grab them. Attracting talent, growing talent, that's one big topic. But also losing people is a critical impact on business of any size, especially when you get to that 500 employers or less small business sector. Losing employees can be devastating. What are the top 1 or 2 reasons why employers will lose someone?
And well, what our business services team members hear, well, first of all, you've got obviously the opportunity to make a higher wage. So a lot of times you'll find people are leaving because there's a job that may pay a higher wage and or benefits that individuals are not receiving at their current location. But what interestingly has surfaced over probably the last year or two is the lack of the ability to pass a drug screening. So it's not only an issue for an individual to get hired in many occupations, but also for them to retain their positions. And we are starting to hear now that, as a matter of fact, so many companies are so concerned about their talent shortage that they're not even drug testing unless there's an accident that occurs on the job where they have to, verify that drugs were not involved in any way. And so I think that just goes to show you how tight the labor market is, and some of the strategies, whether good or bad, that companies are using to be able to hold on to the good talent that they have.
Right. Another thing to piggyback off that you can do, I think, as a small business owner, is really get to know your employees and don't wait to do that performance evaluation. Here's how it went the past year, and where do you want to go, employee, in the next year? What do you want to be? Have those conversations all the time. So get your managers and your leadership in a place where they are talking with their team all the time about the job that they're doing, how they like it, where they want to go, because if you can give that employee the experience, the opportunity that they're looking for in your organization, they will stay with you. Even if you're paying a little bit less or the drive is a little bit further, they'll stay. But if you can't provide the experience that they're looking for, there's no doubt they're going to go. They're going to look elsewhere because they can. There are opportunities everywhere. But if you don't know what those employees need and want, it's going to make it really hard for you to fill that need for them.
Yeah, great point. A couple of things that I've been hearing about retention that it had not been on my radar for some time is the ability to access training. They want more training. They want to be able to expand what they're doing. They also are very concerned with culture, which is a very confusing thing for an owner who, a culture is a big word. Is it ping pong tables and Pizza Friday? What is culture? What does that mean?
And it's one of the mistakes that we see people what we see companies making is to is to confuse like activities and actions with culture. So activities and actions might be one part of the way that the culture is expressed in a workplace, but it's the idea of is this an environment of empowerment? Are employees empowered? Are they encouraged to take risks, or is it a very risk-adverse type of an organization? Are the rules very clear, or is this the type of place where creativity and innovation and changing things up is really valued? So having the type of culture match with your employees is a really important aspect of keeping an employee there. And if you don't really understand the type of environment that your employees are used to or expecting, or the type of structure that they need around them, or maybe the way that structure might disincentivize them to really give it their all, then employers will have a harder time. And this is different. I think this really is something that's while culture's always been a part of a workplace, in the past there's just kind of an expectation. You get started in a particular career track and you just stick with it for a really long time. I'm of the Generation X, and I remember when I was growing up, Gen X, it was kind of like, oh, these guys are going to change jobs 3 or 4 times in their life. How are we ever going to deal with that? And today, though, what you see is that to really keep employees, younger employees especially, that the idea of continuously learning, advancing, taking on more responsibility, variety in what they do, that these are all very important aspects to holding on to employees. And so in some cases you can understand the frustration, but at the same sense, every generation complains about the one that comes after them. That's nothing new, right? So, but how are we as employers how are we going to adjust? Because we still have to bring this next generation along in order to fill the needs that we have in our organizations.
Tenure, that's a really big change. In tech companies, I heard a statistic, I don't know where it's from, but Google and Amazon, respectively, average new employee tenure is 1.1 year, 1.2 years. That's really tough on a business
Sure
to
is.
lose. I mean, it takes me 9 months to get somebody kind of up to speed so I can let them go. So you think about the talent piece and planning as an owner. It seems like one of you were talking about short-term, mid-term, and long-term plans for hiring and retaining.
Right, yeah. It feels like right now we have a lot of frustration with the talent issue and not enough solutions. So small business owners are saying, what can I do now? And are there some better solutions that I can work on down the road? So I can share some thoughts with you about that. I mean, in the short term, it's a paradigm shift, and we really have to do a paradigm shift all throughout the process of doing things differently. The number one source of hire right now for most companies, you'd be surprised to hear this, employee referral. Almost 55% of new hires come as a result of an employee referral. So as a small business owner, if you don't have an employee referral program in place, you better get one now. I would recommend you do something where you incentivize. So, if Lisa, you bring your friend into my business and I hire them 6 months later, you might get a little bonus check of $500 for that. It makes a lot of sense for a couple reasons. One, your employees are natural, great ambassadors for your organization because they're working there and they already love you. They love what they're doing. So they're very able to tell the story in a good way to people that they know. Secondly, if they're good employees, and we're going to assume that you've got good employees in your organization, right? They're going to know other good people because good folk hang around with good folk, right? So you want to know their neighbors, their friends at church, the people that they sit on the soccer sidelines with. You want to know those folks, and you want them to be ambassadors for your organization. So short term, if you don't have an employee referral program in place, get one today. That's the short term. Midterm is really looking at growing your own talent. People say, well, how can that's not really a midterm strategy, but I really think internships, hiring students, bringing them along, teaching them, and maybe even on a part-time basis until they're ready for a full-time shot at it, is a great way to do it. And also, a little bit of a paradigm shift. Hire people who are learners. Hire for talent more than the skills that are ready today. Now, I recognize that in some technical fields, you might have to have that technical talent to do the job, right? But there are times when, if you take somebody who doesn't quite have it, but they have the aptitude and the desire and the willingness and the passion for the work, and you give them 6 months with a mentor, they're ready to go. Okay, and they can be hugely valuable to your organization. And recognize too that maybe the days, as Brian referred to, of I'm going to retire from this company, I'm only have 2 or 3 jobs my whole year, or my whole life, my whole career. Those days are gone. Things are changing so rapidly right now. We've got to get people into our companies that we can have immediate impact with in the next 2 to 3 years, because we don't know what comes after that. We really don't. Everything is changing so quickly in our business climate. Those skills that we're hiring for today may not be what we need in 3 years. So we almost have to recognize that we need to be in a place where we are always recruiting for what comes next in our operations. And that's a huge paradigm shift for small businesses especially.
So those are, when you talk about external ways to create a plan, partnerships in the community, partnerships with organizations that can help, right, Edythe? What are the best ways to access Michigan Works for a business owner?
So all 16 of us Michigan Works agencies have business services teams, and literally that's what we do. We go out and work with business, all sizes, small, and like I said, we may be the HR department for a small business. We may work with large companies that maybe only do internal, have their own internal application process, and we're going in and saying, hey, you can get a larger pool if you will use Michigan's service, the mytalent.org site, and post your jobs on that site too. So look at recruiting outside of what would be your normal recruiting processes. But our business services team members are there to help a company. All they have to do is reach out, and I'd be more than happy to provide more information, or folks can certainly call me and I would connect them to the appropriate Michigan Works agency. But we're here. It's a service that we are providing every day to companies. And we also are able to then connect them with job seekers that are coming to our American Job Centers looking for work. And we do have funding that can help some of those individuals. Maybe they're not where they need to be, but with some of the funding, whether it's them going back and getting some educational training, or it could be some on-the-job training. And the Going Pro, that's an excellent. That was an excellent program. I mean, Going Pro is filtered through the Michigan Works system. So we're right there in the middle with the company and the education system, trying to help navigate that system for those individuals that need help. So the Michigan Works system is really a one-stop shop, and I would encourage, if companies are not utilizing that system, then they're really missing out.
Yeah, and I have to mention too, this is free. You can contact the Michigan Works, and this is free to owners. So it's quite a good value. I can't think of doing a show on talent and retention without talking about the Marshall Plan. Brian, you're the former Lieutenant Governor of the state of Michigan. You've got that insider's view. Can you talk about the Marshall Plan to end this?
The Marshall Plan for Talent was really meant to bring together a lot of different siloed programs that existed and then supplement them with new efforts reaching deeper and earlier into the education system. And so it was everything from helping schools to really ramp up good, solid career counseling much, much earlier in the process. And that's more than dealing with the child, but it's also the teachers and the parents, and understanding where opportunities are for their children to review. Because it's been, for years, it's been kind of like, here's the definition of success, and it was this one thing, right? Go to a 4-year university, become a lawyer, become a maybe become a doctor, something like that. And there's all these other things where you can pursue a career with little or no debt and have a high income. I mean, these options are available. So the Marshall Plan started there, and then all the way through to reconnecting people later on in life with new skills, the ability to gain new skills in order to update and be more relevant to what the economy requires today. And then we see now an even bigger initiative that the Whitmer administration is talking about, reconnecting my opportunity scholarships which are meant to expand community colleges and 4-year college access certification and so forth. These are all really exciting developments.
Yeah, and I think if you haven't, if you don't want to do the same things your parents have done, it's hard to know where that path begins. So, really great conversation today. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jeff, one of the toughest fields to recruit, train, and hire for is IT. I know of a college right now that when you enter their college, if you hit certain benchmarks and you major in IT, they guarantee you a job at graduation. That's how hard it is. Guaranteed jobs. So as a business, small business market, SMBs, what's the best way to satisfy your IT needs as a company?
Right. So what we have seen historically in the past is people want to hire their own IT guy or gal. I say guys because 90% of them are guys. But there's a trend, and it's been going on for a long time, is just to outsource it. So similar to the way that you'd outsource your accounting or your HR or legal, you're not going to hire someone and expect them to have them on the staff. The other thing with having someone on the staff is it's typically you can afford one. So you have that one viewpoint, one skill set, and with a wide variety of technologies, the cloud, the security stuff that we all need to be focused on, the one person typically can't do it. So outsourcing IT is the right way to go.
Get lots of professionals for the same dollar, yeah.
Right,
That sounds
typically
like a good
it's
idea.
the same dollar if you add it up and you hire someone, let's say $60,000 employee burdened with benefits, and now that's something that you can outsource for. Typically it's so much per employee, that's how it's priced, and now you have a team. You have a security person, you have some people who can do deployments or help desk work, and you can have a virtual CIO, all bundled in that package for the same price as the one employee.
Right. So we identify the small business market for the audience of this show as up to 500 employees. Is that sustainable, an outsourced IT department for a company with 500 employees?
Certainly for some specific aspects of it. For example, outsource all of the help desk or outsource all of the security or some of those things. So piece it out. Sometimes we see companies absolutely need someone on site. They need fast response right now. And so how do they get that? Well, they have the person on site. Well, that talent doesn't have the advanced skills, doesn't have design architecture skills, can't help the business decision maker make the right technology decisions, and that's where outsourcing of those things comes in.
Excellent, thank you.
You're welcome.
Good stuff.
Focus on Tech, brought to you by Providence, making technology easier.
Hi, Bill. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So when it comes to this labor market, everything seems to be costing a bit more for owners. The cost of talent is up. Wages are rising. I know a lot of owners who are adding additional benefits to retain employees. There's the reverse side as well, where some folks are hiring part-time, but the reality is things are costing a bit more these days, and that may require some business owners to access capital. What kind of advice do you give to owners who are looking to get some capital?
Yeah, this is something that we're familiar with. We're experiencing the same thing in our business. So it's something that we have to look at when we evaluate what we're doing within our business. So I think the same thing for those business owners. They're going to have to figure out, what are we going to do with that capital? So if they're going to come to me as a banker and say, I need to have more capital, my questions are going to be, okay, what are you going to do with it? So I think they're going to have their financials in order. Make sure that they have a financial plan of how they're going to use it, how it's going to affect their business, and if they're paying for more talent, how is that going to affect their bottom line? Are they going to make more money by having that talent? Is it going to be less income, cash flow? And then what are their plans for the long term? I think, somebody said to me one time, hope is not a plan. So I think it's really having an idea of what they're going to do with it, how it's going to affect their business, how they're going to compete, and what they're going to do in the future. And maybe how it's different from the past. I mean, business is changing at a very fast pace, so I think they're going to have to really know what they're going to do with that capital and be able to explain that to somebody that they're working with.
You seem like you have a lot of conversation with owners. Is that a bank, get to know your banker? Or is that kind of the moral of the story?
Yeah, I think, what we look at is you're going to want to know the people that you're working with. So for us, I want to know the business owner, I want to know their business, I want to have a better understanding of what they do. And I think that's important for them too, because they're going to want to work with some people that, for the long term, these are long-term decisions. The business is going to be in business for a long term, so we want to make sure that you're creating a great relationship with them. When you work with a bank, you're taking on a business partner, and you're going to want to make sure that partner is right for your business.
Great. Thank you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you very much.
Focus on Banking, brought to you by Michigan Bankers Association.
Denise, as an attorney, what advice would you give for retaining good employees?
Well, it's a great question because employees are very hard to retain right now. It's a competitive market. It's an employees market. So I guess my first piece of advice is once you have a good employee, your first job would be put them under contract. Don't be afraid to put an employee under contract. I think the instinct for employers is always to have at-will employees. That's not necessary if you have a good one. Give them a contract, give them an incentive, and you're going to want a good, enforceable, non-compete agreement in your contract for your employees. That doesn't mean that you're going to be preventing them from working in their field forever. You want to make sure that the non-compete agreement is enforceable, which means it has to be reasonable, both in scope and in geography. So for example, as an attorney, I could not prevent one of my associates from working in Michigan, right? It would need to be reasonable in geography, about 5 or 10 miles, and the general rule of thumb for non-compete agreements is somewhere between 6 months and 2 years. And then you'll be able to go ahead and enforce that. But of course, every contract can always be broken. So the one thing you also want to do is make sure that they want to stay with you. So in that contract, you're going to want great incentives, employee benefits, and ask your employees and your incoming prospective employees what they'd like to see out of an employer, because it's not always about money. Sometimes it's about work flexibility or benefits.
Wonderful. Thanks so much for all of your information. I think that the real rule of thumb here is you can take a good employee and ask them to make a commitment to you.
Absolutely.
All right, great. Thanks so much. We appreciate you being here.
Focus on Law, brought to you by Policella and Associates, PLLC.
Talent attraction and retention is a leading concern for businesses. Now you know what Michigan is doing to address it and some things that you can do to strengthen your position.